Is it just me, or does it feel like everywhere you go, you're expected to tip? I mean, before, tipping used to mean that you were given amazing, excellent service and that person warranted a little something extra because of how great they did. But it seems like even if you go to a place where you have to order yourself from a kiosk, you have to go pick up your food yourself, and you dispose of your plates, they still expect you to tip. Is it just me, or is this kind of ridiculous? You know what? Let's talk about it on today's episode of Coffee with Tori. Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Tori. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below introducing yourself. I'd love to say hi to all of my new friends. You know, I was out and about with my husband last week, and we went to this pretty nice restaurant. I mean, I wouldn't say it was the fanciest restaurant in the world, but it wasn't the worst. We got some food there. Now, the girl who was serving us, she did not seem like she wanted to be there, to be completely honest. Like, it definitely seemed like I'm just here because I have to be here, not because I want to be here or that I enjoy my job, which, you know, it happens. We talked about that on a previous episode, so definitely go check that out. But she served us our food. It was not amazing service by any means. It wasn't horrible, but it definitely wasn't great. And so we got our food, we ate, we got some to-go boxes because we didn't eat all of it. We paid, and because it wasn't so amazing, now you might disagree with me here, but because it was not amazing and it definitely did not warrant a tip by any means, we chose not to. We chose not to leave one. Only because it was not good. It was not good service at all. And as we were paying and he, tapped his card and decided to bypass the tip, she was looking at the screen while we were paying, and she blatantly asked us, "Oh, so you're going to tip me in cash?" Now, both myself and him were very surprised by this because we were just kind of like, we weren't planning on giving you a tip at all. You were not a good server, like at all. All right. But, we didn't want to cause a scene. We left it out alone and gave her a very, 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 very small tip just not to cause problems. And that whole interaction got me to thinking, you know what? Tipping culture in the US has kind of gotten out of control, and I really feel like that's something we need to talk about. So let's dive into it. So in the past, whenever you would go to a nice restaurant, or if you went to any kind of restaurant for that matter, you have a server who would come to your table, they would introduce themselves, they would get your order, your drink order, maybe your food order, appetizer order, whatever in that moment. They would share their name, they would talk to you a little bit, kind of joke around, get to know you, just kind of making you feel welcomed and at home. And then once they brought you your first order, usually it's your beverages, then they would continue interacting to see if you needed appetizers or anything like that. They would also kind of see how you're doing, how you're liking the restaurant so far, put in that order, come back, take your entree order, put that in, come back, check on you throughout your meal just to make sure that everything is going well. And if you needed anything, they would be more than happy to provide that additional thing that you needed. Usually they're very friendly, very nice, very upbeat, and they just want to make sure you have great experience. And when those things happen, a tip is definitely warranted. This person has gone above and beyond in their services to you to make sure you had a great restaurant experience. But unfortunately, businesses and their love of money and their greed had decided, you know what, since people are giving our servers tips for doing a really amazing job, we should base their pay off of their tips, and we'll just cut our employee spending. And so while I haven't done the full research, I know that there are some industries or some companies, some restaurants that pay their servers maybe $2, $3, $4 an hour, and then they make up that in tips. There are others, like when I was in college, I was a waitress at a restaurant and bar on campus, and I was very grateful to have been paid more than that. I was paid around minimum wage for that job. I think it was like $7.50, $8, something like that an hour, and then I got tips on top of that. So I was very fortunate at the restaurant and bar that I worked at on campus, but I know that is not the norm in the entire restaurant industry. So the greed, if you will, of businesses saying, you know what, let's cut our cost and our servers rather than maybe raising food prices or maybe finding some other way to save on costs. They chose to lower their, increase their bottom line by cutting the pay of their servers. And thus in turn, tipping culture kind of like boomed because now servers absolutely had to provide amazing service or else they could not pay rent that month. It's a very disgusting thing if you really think about it. The fact that businesses are relying so heavily on the generosity of the patrons. Because think about it from a customer standpoint, right? You're going out to eat and you're paying, who knows, maybe $20, $30, $40, $50, $60 maybe a plate or per person. If you factor in whatever beverages you get, entrees, the appetizers, dessert, the bill easily could hit $200 or $300 in the blink of an eye for a party of 4. And so you're already expected to pay this much for the meal, which is totally warranted, especially if it's a delicious meal. There's no disrespect to any chef out there. Definitely pay for the food for sure. But within that, it should be the price, or if you will, the pay for the server should be included in that rate. But to expect patrons to pay an additional amount of that just for the servers seems quite crazy. Think about it if it was in maybe retail, like in a clothing store. Imagine going into a store and you're going to buy some clothing or furniture, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to spend this much money on this new sofa. I'm going to spend $3,000 on a new sofa. All right, you go in, you have a plan, the person who's there, they help you, it's great. But then you pay for your sofa thinking it's going to be $3,000, and then the person who was helping you buy your sofa turns around and says, would you like to leave me a 20% tip? Shouldn't that be factored into the cost of the sofa? The manufacturing of the sofa, the brick and mortar of the furniture store that you're buying it from, the utilities for that, and then the payment of the person who helped you, be it commission or not, should be factored into that price. So why is the restaurant industry any different? Honestly, I don't know. Leave me a comment below and let me know what you think. As much as we don't love tipping in the US and the fact that it has gotten completely out of hand, in my personal opinion, I do think there are certain people in certain industries that deserve a tip if they do a really good job. Let's talk about those people, shall we? So in the restaurant, in the food industry, I would agree, yes, some servers or bartenders or even cafe workers should, or pardon me, not cafe workers, baristas, excuse me. Baristas definitely deserve a tip if they do a really good job. I have had friends that have gone to different bars and they've told me about experiences that they've had where I guess in this context, they're more of a mixologist, I guess. Leave me a comment. Let me know if that's the correct term. But they communicate with that person to get their beverage, and that person really listens to them and really takes the time to craft a drink that is good for them. I know in my personal experience, I love coffee. I have gone to many coffee shops where baristas have done an exceptional job at creating a delicious beverage for me. I remember there was this really cute coffee food truck, if you will, this coffee truck that I went to. And the girl there had asked me, what kind of drink do you want? What would you like? I was there for a different purpose. I wasn't buying anything for myself, but she wanted to give me a beverage on the house. And so I was like, okay, sure. I'll try it. And she asked me kind of what flavors do I like. So I kind of laid out the type of coffee I like. I like kind of colder coffee. Sometimes I love a good cold brew. It was a bit warm that day. So I was like, I'd love a cold brew. I love sweet, but not too sweet. I love the taste of coffee. And so something like that. So she took all of the little things that I had said to her, and she was like, well, what if we did like a lavender and we did honey with a pinch of vanilla? Let's add oat milk, and I'll do a cold brew and I'll add some extra ice for you. And it was amazing. Delicious. So those types of people in the beverage industry, part of the food industry, absolutely deserve a tip, because on top of their actual job, they are taking the time to get to know you, to get to know your flavor, your palate, what you enjoy, to create something special for you. And I think that definitely warrants a tip. Those who are servers absolutely deserve a tip. Aside from the fact that restaurants should be paying their servers an actual wage, not a little bit, and then assuming that patrons are going to give them a tip, I firmly believe that if a server does go above and beyond and really takes the time to get to know you, to get to know your family or your friends or whoever you're out with, and they really make that a special, experience for you, then I definitely believe in my heart of hearts that they deserve a tip. Speaking of servers who deserve tips, so my husband and I went to this kind of restaurant and bar thing to get burgers. And the server that we had, he was amazing. He was so funny. He was so kind. We definitely went there for burgers specifically, and he told us about the different burgers they had. He wanted to know what kind of drinks we wanted. I was like, I'm getting a burger. I'm getting root beer, obviously. Who doesn't love a delicious cold root beer with your burger? So American of me, I know. But we sat down, we enjoyed our burgers. He checked in on us. I had asked for some barbecue sauce to go with my fries from somebody else, and they hadn't brought it to me. But when our actual server came by, he was like, they didn't bring you barbecue sauce? Like, he was so offended at the fact that I didn't have the sauce for my fries. He was just a great, great, great server. And the next time we're in the area, we'll definitely be going back to that restaurant because of how amazing he did. And yes, we left him a very nice tip as well. So servers like that, baristas, mixologists, bartenders, people like that who take the time to really try to build a connection with their patrons, with the person they're serving, with their customers, they most definitely warrant a tip. The restaurant industry is not the only industry that I would say warrants a tip when the service is really good. I would say any kind of personal care definitely deserves some type of tip. Where my husband and I are, we found an amazing barber for him. His barber is a godsend. This man, long story short, he got a bad haircut before the guy who did it had no idea what he was doing. It was really, really bad, but it was okay. So we went to somebody else, and this man not only fixed the mistakes that this other barber did, he made my husband feel welcomed and listened to what he wanted. He was very professional, very courteous, and he goes to him, whenever he needs a haircut. And so that barber absolutely deserves, a tip because of how well he does his job and the fact that he just makes my husband feel welcomed every time he comes into his shop. I will say for my own self personally, my nail tech is amazing. I absolutely adore her. She not only listens to the crazy ideas I have for my nails, but she is always so excited to do them. It's every time I come in, what are we doing today? Because she knows I want to come up with something insane. And she does a phenomenal job every time coming into that salon and sitting with her and chatting about life or finding out what's going on. She always has such great food places in mind. This girl is a foodie. So if I'm ever in doubt of what kind of food I should have, whether it be lunch or dinner, she is definitely my go-to because she has all of the great recommendations. And every time I go to her, I try my absolute best, even if I cannot give a big tip, at least something, because she is so great. So those who are hairstylists, nail artists, waxers, beauticians, barbers, all of them, those who try their best to make an amazing connection with their patrons, they are the ones who deserve a tip on top of what they're paying. Now, if they reject it, that's totally fine in their prerogative, but a tip should be reserved for those who are trying to create an amazing experience on top of what their actual job is. So there's a big debate about this last group of people who get tips, and that would be delivery drivers. Some people believe that delivery drivers should not get a tip. at all, regardless. Like, it's your job to just drop off food. You're just literally driving and dropping it off. Why am I giving you a tip? Others believe that they should get a tip only after they've dropped off their delivery, assuming that they followed the instructions or were really kind and courteous or whatever criteria they have. Now, I will say I have been a delivery driver before. I've done DoorDash and Uber Eats before. And so there's another video about that coming. So make sure you subscribe so you can know all about that. But I will say when it comes to delivery drivers, it's a tough one. Some of them definitely should not get a tip. I have seen many drivers be very disrespectful to the orders they're picking up. I have heard horror stories of delivery drivers opening bags and stealing people's foods. And in those situations, not only should they not get a tip, they should be kicked off of the app 1000%. That is so unprofessional and unsanitary and just utterly rude, to be completely honest. But for other drivers who's doing like DoorDash or Uber Eats and they're using their own personal vehicles, to say that they deserve a tip is kind of tough. I would say if they are handling your food with extra care, not just, oh, I picked up your order and I threw it in my back seat and I dropped it off at your doorstep. No. I mean, they've taken the time to get the delivery bags to make sure your food stays warm, or they have a cooler to make sure your ice cream does not melt in the summer heat, or some other third thing, like, they're very courteous with your things. I would say those drivers, because they're taking the time to really ensure that you have a pleasant delivery, they should get a tip on top of whatever the rate is. Now, I understand with delivery drivers it's tough because these apps are charging ridiculous fees for delivery. Like, it's quite insane. So I definitely think that's a conversation we need to have more about the actual apps, because of the delivery fees. It would make sense that the fee for the delivery should go to the driver and not to the app. We'll talk about that on the other episode. But when it comes to delivery drivers, let me know what you think. Like, drop a comment below and let me know kind of what you think about that. Should delivery drivers get tips? Should they not get tips? Should you give them a tip after the fact? Like, for example, with Uber Eats, I know you can tip after you get your order, or you can change the tip that you have already given once the order has been delivered. DoorDash, I believe, recently introduced the ability to tip after you've gotten your order. So before, I know that it was you had to tip beforehand, and I believe now they just introduced the ability to tip after or to add an additional tip. So it just kind of depends, with the delivery drivers. I think the market is still new compared to like personal care or the restaurant industry, that people are still not really sure what to do about that. So I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. Like, drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Do you think delivery drivers deserve a tip or not? So we've talked about who deserves a tip, but who doesn't deserve a tip? Businesses. They do not deserve a tip. Let me make this crystal clear. Businesses, the actual entity that is the business that is selling you something, whether it's a good or a service, not the person who's providing you the service, the business itself, they do not deserve a tip. Okay, with that being said, let's talk about fast food. So fast food restaurants have decided that they also want to enter this tipping world, this tipping culture. For some unknown reason, it's bad enough that fast food workers already don't get paid as much as they probably should, but then to expect people to tip on top of the fast food that they're paying for is absolutely crazy, because fast food is supposed to be cheap. Let's just be honest. Let's be transparent here. Let's say it what it is. Fast food is supposed to be cheap. It's not supposed to be a luxury thing. It's not supposed to be something that you're like, oh my gosh, like, we're gonna go out and have this amazing experience. It's fast food. I'm on my lunch break and I just need to grab something real quick. I have kids and we don't have a lot of money, so we just got to buy them something so the children aren't starving. I am pulling, a double and I just need like a bite to just survive. It is not supposed to be this amazing, extravagant experience. Let's just lay it out there. So with that being said, who gets the tip, right? So here's an example. My husband and I, we went to this one place. I guess you could call it fast food. It was like a slightly nicer fast food place. Still fast food though. And they have this kiosk. And so you go in and you put in your order. Like, it's completely self-service. So you put your order in and you decide what you want, right? So you pay at the kiosk. Next to the kiosk, there is these like little number things, and you pick up this number so you know what your number is when your food is ready. It is also printed on the receipt. So once you're done paying for everything, there's a little screen that pops up that says to leave a tip, 10, 15, 20, 25%. We ordered our own food. There was not an employee in sight. It was a figment of our imagination, the employees. They did not exist. So not only did we use the self-service machine and we ordered our food ourselves, we had to take our number ourselves. We paid. Then they expected us to tip something or someone, I don't know. And then we sat down and we waited and we waited and we waited and we waited. And then I looked up and I saw our food was sitting on the counter. Now, I have no idea when it got there. I didn't see anyone put it there. I just saw that our food was on the counter and there was a number which matched our number. So we got out of our chairs, we picked up our food, we brought them back to our chairs, and we sat down and we ate it, which is fine. I am not saying self-service restaurants are a bad thing. I don't have any personal issues with them. I think they're fine, especially if you're the kind of person who doesn't really want to interact with other people. If you are the kind of person who just likes to go in, order your food, get your food, and leave without any other human interaction, self-service restaurants are perfectly fine. I have no issue with them whatsoever. My issue, and I feel this is the issue with many, many people, is when you go to a self-service restaurant of any kind where you have to order the food yourself, you are using an iPad to pay for your food, you have like a number or a buzzer or something to go pick up your food from the window, and you do not interact with a single soul. You clean up your own mess when the dinner is done or your meal is done, and they expect a tip. Who is the tip going to? The business. Businesses do not deserve tips. As a business, their job is to create jobs, is to create a product, to produce something, to sell it and get money. You do not get a tip on top of that. Your entire business is your tip. Do not tip businesses. That is craziness. That is insanity. And all it's going to do is fuel this idea that businesses can just charge ridiculous amounts of money for something, for a product, pay their employees about near nothing, and they get to keep all of the tips as profit. Don't do it. Do not ever, ever tip a business. So I've kind of hinted at these people beforehand, but we're going to dive into this a little bit deeper. The other group of humans, or the other group that I personally feel do not deserve, or you shouldn't tip unless it's just from the goodness of your heart and you just really, 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 really want to, are people who not only don't provide great service, but they provide horrible service. Those people, no, absolutely not. Now, I get it, especially in the world we live in, that sometimes you're working a job that you don't want to work. It's not fun and you hate it. I get it. But when it comes to the service industry, unfortunately, as of right now, if you are a server of any kind, a lot of your money is coming from tips. And so the people who cannot even just provide the bare minimum kind of service, they're people who are only providing like awful service. I mean, to the point that you cannot find them. You have flagged down everybody else in the restaurant but them. They do not check on you. They get your order wrong. And I don't mean that the chefs got your order wrong, as in they themselves put your order into the system incorrectly, refuse to take accountability, and are utterly disrespectful and rude. Those people, no, don't. Because what it sends a message that says, it doesn't matter how awful of a person you are, you still get this reward. And a tip is not supposed to be compensation as in a paycheck. It should be a gesture of gratitude. of, you've done such an amazing job. I would love to give you something extra because of how great you did. And so it's a reward for amazing service. And if we're tipping people who are providing not great service, but literally horrible service, all we're doing is reinforcing that bad behavior. And so the next patron that comes in will most likely have just as horrible of an experience as you did, if not worse, because that person has been rewarded for their negative behavior. Poor service doesn't get a tip. So here's an interesting question, and just something kind of to leave us on today to like really think about. How do we tip the scale, if you will? How do we move away from this culture of expected tipping into a culture of fair wages for the amount of work that is expected and given? Like, what do we do? Aside from starting your own restaurant or going into business for yourself in the personal care industry, aside from doing that, which you totally could do that if that's how you want to help fix this problem, by opening your own business where you pay your servers a fair wage and make it very clear to patrons that tips are not expected here at all. If you feel your server has done such an amazing job that you would like to give that server a tip, then by all means, but the servers here are paid a very fair wage and therefore do not depend on tips. That's fine. You should totally open that business and, drop a comment on where that business is, because I'd love to come check it out. I love trying new things and supporting small businesses. So if you decide to do that, let me know. But if that is not the direction that you feel, I believe the only way that us patrons can tip the scale, if you will, is to stop tipping in places where tipping is not necessary or tipping shouldn't be expected. That is your fast food restaurants, that's poor services, that's businesses. If you go to a restaurant and you're sitting down and you have a server that is amazing, absolutely. If you feel that they deserve a tip, then you should totally give it. But to go to, for example, to like a Starbucks, which at this point is like a fast coffee restaurant, like, no, you order on your app before you even get there. You don't interact with anybody. You literally walk in and grab your coffee and go. Like, why are we giving them a tip? There was no connection. So if we start voting, start speaking with our money, I think that will probably tip the scale back into reality. As long as these mega businesses and these mega corporations think that people, out of the goodness of their heart, is going to pay their employees instead of them paying their own employees, they're going to keep doing it. They're going to keep expecting, they're going to keep asking us who are spending our money to give tips in places where tipping not only shouldn't be allowed, but it just shouldn't happen at all. I think that's the best option, is to start speaking with our dollars. And if it doesn't work, the only other option is to just stop going there. I'm just saying. I used to love Starbucks. I enjoy it occasionally, but I definitely, I'm a coffee girl. I'm a coffee snob. But I used to really like Starbucks, and I would go there quite often. Now, granted, I was ordering it from my app, and I would go into the Starbucks, and I would grab my beverage with my name on it and move on with my life. But there was a day that I was there, and I actually ordered in the cafe, like I wasn't ordering in advance. And the person took my order, and she swiveled the thing around to leave a tip. And it definitely shocked me in that moment, because I was like, but why? You're not even the one making my drink, and you haven't been very nice to me this entire time. Like, I mean, I get it. It was a little bit early, and she definitely was not. She was not having a day. It was not a good day. But I was like, you've been very mean when I just wanted to order such a simple coffee. But okay. No, tipping in that context, no. So I'm not saying that one situation was enough to turn me off from Starbucks, but I will say that was one of many situations where I said, you know what? This is not worth me coming here and being stressed out and upset. So I stopped going. Now I do go sometimes. Like, it's not like a blatant boycott of Starbucks by no means, but I definitely am not going nearly as much as I was before. I've started making coffee at home. It's a whole lot cheaper. But I'm making my opinion known with my monies. Starbucks thinks that I should tip someone who is not really being very nice or doing any kind of service at all, and they're charging ridiculous prices for their drinks. I disagree with that behavior, so I'm not going to shop there. I'm not going to buy my drinks from there. I'll just make them at home. So I think that's the best way to tip the scale. If you feel as though tipping is getting out of control and that it's like ridiculous and this is crazy, honestly, you might have to just start speaking your mind with your dollars and just stop going to those places and start making them at home or finding some local places that you could go to instead. Like, there's a couple of really cute coffee shops near where I live that I have definitely been interested in checking out, and I've gone to a couple of them and they're really nice. And so instead of going to the big mega corporation that's expecting me to tip for no reason at all, I'm either making my coffee at home or I'm going and supporting some of these local coffee shops who don't expect a tip by any means, but they provide an amazing customer service and their coffee is amazing on top of that. But anyways, if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and leave me a comment. I'd love to know your thoughts on these items as well. And I will see you in the next one. Have a good one.